Hello, this is Will Schlecht from IronCrow AI, and I'm going to be introducing a relatively minor update, but I think a helpful one, which is the ability for the interrogation tab to output formatted responses. So previously and up until this point, the responses generated by all of the different tabs in the large language model Sandbox have just been plain text, but we've given the interrogation tab the ability to produce formatted outputs, and I'll show you what those include, but things like tables and lists that have proper formatting and some special formatting for claim amendments to kind of fit with the conventional markup notation used in the USPTO. So to demo these new formatted outputs, I've got the kind of relevant files for an office action, which was imported through OA shell. I won't talk about that in detail, but OA shell has the ability to import all of the relevant files. So we've got the office action, the application that we're working with here that has some rejections in this office action, and then the cited references and some other documents. So we've got all those, and we're going to use agent mode for this, mostly for simplicity, so that the demo isn't mostly me going through a long conversation. We can just do this in a couple of steps. So the first prompt that we're going to use is to illustrate what the table formatting looks like. So we're going to ask the tool to generate a table that shows the examiner how they're mapping the cited references onto the limitations of claim one. So that can be a useful thing. You could also use this same kind of capability to make a claim mapping table that you want to do. So if you want to see some similar prior art and what you think, what relevant portions of those prior art references might read on your claims, you could do it that way. We're going to basically extract the examiner's mapping that they have in the office action so that we can just see it in a nice format. So we will run that with all the documents checked. All right, so we've got our table. We can see we've got kind of a title and different columns in our table. We've got claim limitations, the reference that was cited, and then the citation or explanation for that. So probably won't read it in detail, but yep, basically it's got the relevant portion of this reference which was used. It's a 103 rejection, I think that it's citing. And so there's also secondary reference of Takiyanagi. So we've got just in a nice, easy to read format, all of the places in those references that we might want to check to see if we agree or disagree with the examiner's mapping. So that's good. We can continue with this and we can then ask a follow-up question. So ask this tool for each of the elements of claim one to audit the examiner's mapping by looking at the relevant section of the cited reference and then assessing if the tool agrees or disagrees that the section does in fact teach the claim element that it is used to reject. So we will give it that, and we'll also ask it to put this assessment in the form of a table because it makes sense. If this is basically a claim mapping table, we could then kind of have a claim mapping assessment table. All right, so we've got our audit of the examiner's mapping of claim one, and we can see in this column whether the mapping looks reasonable or is not reasonable. So mostly in agreement, but then there is some partial agreements, and then it does give the explanation for why that's the case. Like in this case, Wang explicitly shows an engine that's coupled to a turbocharger. However, vehicle implementation is only implied rather than explicitly stated. Okay, so that makes sense. Are there any? Yeah, lots of partially agrees. So it'd be nice if we had a strong disagree, but we can always work with partial disagreements, basically. So let's ask one kind of final question in this example, and this is to illustrate what claim amendments look like and how those can be useful and exported. So we'll ask, based on the audit of the examiner's claim mapping, to then amend claim one to further emphasize whatever the partial agreements are, whatever the partial differences are with this reference, let's amend the claim to further emphasize those. And while we are running that, I'll show you how you can export the tables. So you can double click within a response window, and then come over here and paste this. And I suggest that you paste as with keep source formatting. That will keep more of the actual um, format that we have for these tables and stuff. It'll look a little bit better. And so there you go. You can see like this is a true section header, so it will actually um, kind of encompass all of the section below it because it's the header for that section. And then the claim table has, nice formatting. It's actually a Microsoft Word table. And yeah, you can, this is all text. You can edit it or update any of the formatting that you want, but gets you off to a good start if you want to make some kind of a report or something for a client to show claim mappings or just for your own future reference. So we'll just go ahead and remove all of that. And so here we can see the tool has come back with an amendment to claim one. And so you can see it writes it in markup notation. And in this case, there weren't any deletions, just some additions. And it explains kind of why it's done these amendments. So what was actually added? So it did emphasize that the modeled speed is continuously tracked and that the turbocharger is in certain kinds of vehicles. I'm not a big fan of this amendment, but you can always update things. It's kind of just a super short example with very little guidance from me, which is really not how you would want to do this. And then the amendments to claim one are fully supported. Sure, sure. What is the argument though? Yep. The amendment adds the model speed continuously tracks the measured speed during non-surge conditions, which is explicitly supported in a certain paragraph of our application, shown in figure 3. It's cool. It's nice that it has the support. Yeah, so that's fine. I won't get into the substance of whether or not it makes sense in this case, but the point is we've got this formatted claim amendment, and that's great. But if you click on just the claim or anywhere in the claim, it will copy just the claim or a list of claims. And once you've got a claim copied, you can then come over to a Word document and paste, and it will retain that markup notation. So we've got our amendments are actually, bolded and underlined. I think it's a minimum requirement for the USPTO that all amendments are underlined. The bolding I like personally, and I think it just makes it even easier to spot where additions have been made. Just as a further illustration of the formatting capabilities, I will ask it just as a test, please make some additional amendments to claim one, including deletions and additions of various limitations. And I don't need it to have the full power of the agent mode, so I'll just submit a normal request. So to kind of further clarify, with tables as well, if you click within the table, you will just copy the table. And if you click outside of most elements or kind of up towards the top, you'll copy the whole response. So you have the ability to kind of choose what you want to copy. I think in many cases, it's like there's a chunk of work product which is generated that you might want to use in something. And you can just copy that and paste it into Word, and it will retain the formatting. So here we can see we've got an example with some deletions as well, and it knows how to use double brackets to mark shorter deletions. So we'll copy these claims and come over to our Word document and then paste, keeping the formatting. And you can see that the deleted portion retains its strike through. So, yep, the claims, previously you would have had to kind of figure out where those changes were and make the markup notation or add the markup notation manually. So this saves a few steps and is really helpful, I think, with prosecution. Um, even if you have amendments that you have determined the strategy of what amendments to make. Um, Say, you want to incorporate the limitations of a certain claim, you can just ask this tool to do that, and it'll do it very well, and it will then produce the markup notation. So at a minimum, it's just a nice way to avoid having to add the markup notation manually. But the fact that it is also connected to all of your prosecution documents and really anything else, especially through the search tab, you can send in any information kind of in the patent verse that you want to send. And then you can, yeah, in light of all that information, you can have different claim amendments and different tables for claim mappings or other kinds of analyses. And you can also see there's things like these tables are now kind of properly formatted tables and got section headers and stuff. So the formatting for the interrogation tab is a lot better. So that's what I wanted to show for today. Not a huge update, but I think a very helpful one. So hope you like it. All right, talk to you later.